This is day 4 of this June 2024 7-day sesshin. And over the past few days, I've been reading from a book of Tongan Roshi's teishos called Throw Yourself into the House of Buddha. But today, I'm going to change gears and go to another text. Subtle Sound, the Zen Teachings of Maureen Stewart. It's edited by one of her students, Roko Sherry Chayat, and it was published posthumously in 1996, several years after Maureen Roshi had died. She was actually a contemporary of Tongan Roshi. She was born in 1922, and he was born in 1924. And really both were part of the same generation of Zen teachers as our very own PK, Roshi Kapleau. Their lifespans overlapped. And another thing that they had in common was that each had trained with Yasutani Roshi. For a little more biography, I'm going to glean from a book by Roshi James Ford titled Zen Master Who? A Guide to the People and Stories of Zen. And in this book, he provides an overview of the emergence of Zen in the United States through the lives of teachers. And here's what he says about Maureen Roshi. She was one of the first female Zen teachers in America. Was also one of the first to give Zen a Western face. Maureen was born in Saskatchewan, Canada in 1922, and in 1949 she received a music scholarship to study in Paris with renowned conductor Nadia Boulanger, who would later become the first woman to conduct a major symphony in America. While in Paris, Maureen first stumbled across a reference to Zen in a book called An Introduction to Oriental Thought. Many years later, when she was interviewed for a biographical study, Maureen recounted how she wrote in the margins of that book, "That's it. This is what I've been looking for." And then he says, but it wasn't until 1966, after she had returned to the U.S., settled in New York, got married, and had 3 children, that she began practicing at the Zen Study Society. And after 3 weeks, she sat her first sesshin with Yasutani Roshi in upstate New York. And 1966, that same year, is the year that our center was founded by Kapleau Roshi. The year that 3 Pillars of Zen was published. Then James Ford goes on to describe how in 1977, at which time Maureen had been working with Edo Shimano, she was ordained as a priest and became the resident teacher of the Cambridge Buddhist Association in Massachusetts. However, she cut off her ties with Edo Roshi when his sexual misconduct was brought to the light. Such an abuse of power, not to mention the precepts. But fortunately, Maureen's faith in the practice was not shattered by her teacher's egregious behavior. She also trained with Soen Nakagawa Roshi, as did Roshi Kapleau. And Ford says that it was in 1982, 2 years before Soen's death, that he had authorized Maureen as a teacher and told her to start using the title Roshi. And then Ford says, This was a controversial event, as he chose not to give her formal Dharma transmission. Consequently, she refrained from using traditional Zen phrases such as Dharma heir or lineage holder when referring to herself, although she did, as requested, use the title Roshi. She ordained several priests, but did not designate any successors before her own untimely death from cancer in 1990. We can't speculate why there wasn't a public ceremony, but despite not having that, and the fact that she had been teaching for fewer than 10 years when she had passed away, today she's widely recognized as a prominent Zen teacher. Along with Charlotte Joko Beck, who also trained with Soen Nakagawa Roshi and Yasutani Roshi, we can see Maureen Stewart as a real pathbreaker in the emergence of female teachers in the U.S., as well as in the growth of lay practice in the midst of family and work life. So turning to one of her teishos, I'm going to start with one that's in the middle of the book, with a chapter titled No Big Deal, chapter 16. She begins, "Our Zen life is ordinary life. When we start adding things to it, as Nyogen Senzaki said, it's like painting legs on a snake. Just to be ordinary is the most difficult thing. To be plain, to be simple, not to make a fuss about anything. This is our Zen life." Don't fuss about anything. We've heard this before. When tired, sleep. Get some rest. When thirsty, drink. Have some water. When walking, just walk. Just walk, not going anywhere, but just walking. not trying to get from A to B. There's no special techniques or tricks to this practice. It's radically simple. Just continuously bring the mind back to this one moment. She continues, Joshu, one of the greatest teachers, always used whatever was at hand. His teachings were along the lines of, have you eaten your porridge? Have you washed your bowls? Of course, when such ordinary acts are done thoroughly, completely, cheerfully, then they become extraordinary. And, by cheerfully, she's not suggesting that we manufacture a smile in everything that we do. It's just being one with, merging with whatever we're doing. Whatever it is. Our dancing and songs are the voice of the Dharma. And so are our blunders and mistakes and missteps. Just be one with it all. She continues, every single bite of porridge is tasted fully. But it is not done with the feeling of doing something special. There is no self-congratulatory inner voice saying, oh, look, I'm such a wonderful Zen student, sitting long hours, doing everything so mindfully. We just do it with no thought about it, whatever it is. And of course, this doesn't mean that thoughts are not going to pop up. That's because our brain is hardwired to produce them. It makes no sense to criticize ourselves for producing thoughts any more than it does for judging ourselves for producing mucus, sweating, urinating. The body does what it does. It's not a problem. So not only should we not congratulate or pat ourselves on the back for doing the practice, but we shouldn't blame ourselves for having a brain that oozes thoughts. Let them be. She says, to draw attention to what we are doing would be sickening and would have nothing to do with the Zen. We just wash our bowls, washing away any excessive use of Zen terminology, any illusions of enlightenment. For our practice to become more ordinary, more real, we use words that everybody can understand. We refer to what is right here, right now. We sit, we walk, we cook, we eat, we clean, we have nosebleeds. And it's just here, right in front of us. No big deal. Practicing together, she says, is a wonderful, extraordinary experience. Yet we are so much in it that we can't even talk about it. There's nothing to say. Every single act, everything we do is the expression of our true nature. We may not know it. We may not be aware of it. We may not even think we have any insight. But everything we do is an expression of who we are. Standing up, sitting down, eating, drinking, laughing, crying, washing our bowls, especially if we do it unself-consciously. Totally natural, selfless, just doing what needs to be done with no trace of self-importance nor self-criticism. As Bodhin Roshi often says, we need to practice like a total fool, a simpleton, meaning we just need to completely lose ourselves in it. That's why it's so important not to look around, not to check out others and see what they're doing. Focus on your own practice. Be a fool for moo, for who, for this, or whatever your practice is. It's kind of like being a fool in love. Giving yourself to it unconditionally. Can't put it down. Not, oh, I'll focus on it later on when I feel better, when the conditions are right. I'll wait until I have more energy. I'll wait until Yaza. Then I'll really get into it. None of that. Unconditional love. Through all the conditions and mind states that we experience. Just keep giving ourselves and expecting nothing in return. And Marine Roshi says, and we have never done any of it before. This is the first sitting, the first kinhin we have ever experienced. We are fresh, completely fresh, taking nothing for granted, with no ideas about what Zen is. Everything is seen as it is for the very first time. Even though the sesshin schedule may be very familiar, we are going through it with keen attention, really being present with each moment, really eating our porridge, really washing our bowls, and when it's done, it's done. There's nothing to hold on to, nothing. Nor do we hold anything back. We don't think. Next time, things will be easier. Next time I'll work harder. I'll be able to concentrate better. I'll do better. Right now is all we have. That's it. So let's be here. Let's burn up our resources unstintingly. This inhalation is the very first and only inhalation. There's just this one. We're so conditioned to look at ourselves and the world with old eyes rather than new eyes. It's like opening up a door. You've opened a door hundreds, thousands of times. You do it over and over. You know how to do it. So you turn the doorknob without even paying attention. There's no need to. You don't need to look at it. You've got it down. Our habitual way is to only pay attention when something goes wrong. When we don't get what we want. If we get stuck. In the case of the door, if it's unexpectedly locked or jammed, then we look at it. But each time you open a door, each time you take a seat here in the Zendo or in your home, each time you take a step, it's the first one. Completely new. It's only the way that we're looking that is old. That's what it takes to look directly. Really, really look. Then she says, when we think we have something, we just forget about it. We start all over again, going deeper and deeper, never thinking we have completely understood. Sometimes people ask me, when did you finish your Zen training? I have never finished. There's no end to it. When we think we have attained something, we're in trouble. We need to wash away everything and become a beginner over and over again. There's no stopping point, no end to practice. No point of arrival. Life flows continuously, and so does practice. Then Maureen Roshi tells a story about a conversation she had with a student. She says, "A young woman called me this week from California to tell me she had cancer. Very worried, very upset. She said, 'I am preparing to die.' I said, 'How about preparing to live? They go together.' And then I asked her, 'Do you know any people who need help?' And she said, 'Lots.' I told her, 'Well, you'd better get busy. Don't worry about your lump. Find somebody else to help.' And later, it turned out that what this young woman thought, what she thought was cancer, was just a benign tumor. How many of us in this situation would do the same? Catastrophize, assume the worst, get caught up in some imagined predicament, get stressed out, lose sleep, become consumed by thoughts about what's going to happen next, all the what ifs. That's all a strategy of the ego. And catastrophizing is something that people can do in sesshin as well. I can't focus. I've lost my practice. That's it. I'm done. I can't do this. Why bother? And then a little later, maybe the next round, maybe after a nap, maybe the next block, or whenever, suddenly the practice is back. Where did it go? It comes back all the sooner when we keep working at it. When we keep working at it through all mind states, all conditions, which all pass, sooner or later. Another kind of ego-fueled strategy during sesshin, especially during the second half of sesshin, is to coast along. You may reach a point where your mind feels pretty settled, you're feeling more relaxed, more energized by all the days of Zazen. And instead of continuing your effort, which may involve charting into unknown waters, instead of pressing on, you back off. You put in just enough effort to cruise along. Been there, done that. Don't settle for it. Remember why you came here. Maureen Roshi then tells another story, and this one is an exchange between Hogen, which is the Japanese name for the Chinese master Faiyan, and Seiho. And in Chinese, his name is Qing Feng. I'll stick with her use of the Japanese names, though. Once, there was a monk who spent 3 years at the famous Master Hogen's place without going to see him. Finally, Hogen asked him why he never came to him to inquire about Buddhism. The monk said, "Before this, I was with Master Seiho, and I heard the doctrine and attained peace and bliss." Then Hogen asked him what words had brought him this peace. And the monk said he had asked Seiho this question: "How is it the self of this disciple?" And Seiho responded, "The lamp boy is looking for the light. The lamp boy is looking for the light." Hogen said to the monk, "Well, that's a very nice phrase, but you probably have not understood it." Perhaps Hogen sensed that he was just imitating, or maybe there was some pride he could detect in the monk's attitude. In any case, the monk was a little bit angered that his wonderful realization was being questioned. He told Hogen, "Well, this is how I understand it. The lamp boy is in charge of the lights. Taking the light to go look for the light is like myself taking the self to look for the self." Now, there are different translations of this exchange, and Andy Ferguson, in the book Zen's Chinese Heritage, has Seiho's response a little different. He says, "The child is of the fire, and still he seeks fire. It's like the self looking for the self." Then Hogen said, "I knew it. You have not understood at all. If that were Buddhism, it would have never lasted until now." The monk was very upset. He got up at once and started to leave, thinking to himself, "What am I doing studying under this fool? He doesn't even see how wonderful my understanding is." So yeah, this monk is caught up in thoughts about what a good Zen student he is, congratulating himself for what he thinks is true insight. Words in and of themselves miss the mark. Then the story continues. After going a little way, it occurred to the monk, that this Hogen was supposed to be a man of great spiritual attainment, one of the wisest teachers around. So maybe there was something to what he said. So he went back, and this time the monk said, "I may have been wrong. I bow and ask pardon. In reverence and repentance, I ask, how is it the self of this disciple? Hogen replied, the lamp boy is looking for the light. Or, it's the boy of fire seeking fire. And with this, suddenly the monk had true enlightenment. And now here's Maureen Roshi's commentary. What happened? The first time, the monk was dwelling in the realm of the intellect, of concepts, of somebody else's words, some prepared answer. Taking the self to look for the self was his imitative way of saying, the self is the Buddha, and was no more than painting a picture. And when Hogen rejected his answer, the monk's angry reaction was confirmation that he really hadn't understood. Yeah, would a person of true insight become angry if they were told they had further to go, more work to do? Would they become angry if they received feedback? Would they be full of pride in their practice? She says, yet he went back and he asked Hogen's pardon. This is the point, the essential matter, that he let go of his egocentric self to allow himself to become one with his teacher. When he asked Hogen's pardon, those words were his own. In other words, the monk's response at that point was authentic the second time around. They came straight from the Hara. Maureen Roshi goes on, so it is with us. Some of you come and give me very fine phrases, but where do they come from? Are they your own? Are they from your own experience? If they are, they come forth in a very different way from phrases taken from a book or from someone else's words. What is your living experience of this? How do you express it? Yesterday, I asked somebody to sing me a song. Quick, right on the spot. And the person did. No self-consciousness. No, oh, I'm nervous. I can't perform. I'm not good enough. I don't know yet. It happened to be a Bach aria. It was fresh. It was a clear expression of this mu practice. It was spontaneous and beautiful. Don't worry, I won't ask you to sing a song. But maybe I will. I'm getting some ideas. She says, when we let go of all our intellectual stuff, all our indirect and static knowledge, we allow ourselves to get in touch with the dynamic and direct, intuitive understanding that we all have. And out of this comes real freedom. Freedom to express whatever is in the moment. Like the burglar who locked his son in a chest as a way of teaching him his trade, a good Zen teacher puts the student in a box from which there seems to be no way out. The student must find the answer in their own way. We think that there must be a right way, that there must be one answer, and that what we're doing must be wrong, must be the wrong way. It's wrong because I'm not getting the results I want. Nothing's happening. I'm not feeling it. And we might turn to the teacher for help. Please, what am I doing wrong? What can I do differently? I keep trying and trying. Nothing's happening. I'm so grateful that Roshi didn't help me. Even when I was desperately seeking it. He insisted on not robbing me of my own experience. He trusted me. Maureen Roshi continues. The more we practice, the more we come to know our own minds, and we come to realize the absolute hopelessness of the mind restrained by the ego. All our accumulated knowledge is inadequate. Our teacher tells us over and over again, be simple, be plain, be ordinary, be open, have no fixed ideas. And still we hang on to the idea that we can achieve something. Our habitual result-seeking mind tells us that I need to make something happen. I don't know what it is, but there's got to be some kind of payoff here. Ordinary mind has no expectations. It's not interested in self-indulgence. It isn't looking to change anything. It's not busy diagnosing and fixing problems. It has no complaints, no sense of right or wrong. It just rests, relaxes into what is. It just flows along with the current. Not putting up any resistance. So, when you come to Doksan, unless you need some guidance on how to deal with an issue, something you're struggling with, unless you're needing some help, which you should bring up in Doksan. Beyond that, You don't need an agenda. You don't need to figure out ahead of time what you're going to say. You don't need to have a question that you need to ask in order to come to Doksan. There's nothing you need to prove. Don't waste your attention and energy on trying to make a good impression. You don't need to show me that you're a good Zen student. Everyone here in this sesshin is a good Zen student. Just like every day is a good day. Every moment is a good moment. Every breath, a good breath. Just come as you are. Just be in your practice. Then I'm going to skip ahead a bit. Maureen Roshi says, the Buddha directed us to look into matters of our own experience, to examine the nature of suffering. Where does our suffering come from? My way, my opinion. This is the way things should be. I have to do it this way. When we let go of this egotistic way of life, we discover what Obaku said. Mind, universal mind, or reality, is no other than Buddha, and Buddha is no other than sentient beings. When mind assumes the form of sentient beings, it has suffered no decrease, and when it has become Buddha, it has added nothing to itself. So clear away these deep-seated notions that a real, substantiated, abiding ego exists. Thank goodness it does not. It did not, and it will not. What a relief! As we go along in this practice, we begin to see things differently. But don't expect anything. Don't think, my life will change dramatically. To say, my life is or will be anything, is to go back to that egotistic process. Just do what needs to be done and let the results take care of themselves. Be patient. Everything will change. If we're looking to have our expectations met, wanting something, anything to happen, then really we're saying no. No to this. We're telling ourselves that this right here, right now, can't be it. How can we find a way to say yes? yes to this, to open up to things as they are, unconditionally. It requires attention to our practice and an open heart. To allow ourselves to touch and be touched by everything we experience. Each moment as it is. Without putting a label on it. We'll stop here and recite the 4 vows.